Hello and welcome to Shit Happens podcast. If you haven't already come across Shit Happens yet, it's a sex education blog that I run talking about a wide variation of topics related to all things sex. Some of the blogs also include first-hand confessions where people have actually been brave enough to come forward and share their experiences with me, the good, the bad and the ugly. You see, sex education is such a huge topic, and we barely get taught anything about it in the schooling system. My sex education was being shown how to put a condom on a hard dildo, the basics about periods, and briefly about pregnancy. It's not only school where sex education isn't taught, though, it's not really taught much in life either. You see, I grew up in my younger years without my mum, so I didn't really have a female figure as such to ask questions about certain topics or to be told about certain things, like the contraceptive pill, the morning after pill, sexual health, consent, and the importance of condoms, etc. I was seemingly left in the big bad world to fend for myself, and I'm sure this is also the case for a lot of other people, regardless of the parental situation. Because these things, they're just not talked about. I mean, where we talk about fetishes, erectile dysfunction, contraceptives, things like vaginismus and endometriosis, consent, even the female orgasm, the morning after pill, the realities of porn, the plethora of sexualities out there, or even just the pleasure factor of sex. You're not unless you come across it yourself. I mean, writing this blog has also taught me so much, and I thought by adding a podcast version, it would potentially help break that taboo a little bit more by being able to hear someone talk about all things sex as to opposed just reading about it. I want to share all the new things that I learn in order to help other people because there's just so much we all don't know about sex ed, no matter how many sex clinic shows you may have watched. I mean, I've always been interested in sex, and as weird as that does sound, I just think it's such a huge, interesting subject, and I think the psychology behind it as to why people do what they do and why they like what they like is also incredibly interesting. I mean, sex can be embarrassing at times, and it's very far-fetched from what you'd watch in porn, because porn is a perfect scene, and that's because it's edited that way. Most of the time, sex isn't perfect, and shit happens. It is what it is. But instead of getting embarrassed about these things, I want people to embrace these moments, because trust me, you're not the only person this has happened to. The first few articles I posted were a series of confessions of what the submitter would perhaps consider awkward moments. The trilogy consists of sex and seizures, sex and sick, and sex and periods. I think people are too quick to let one experience ruin the rest of their future sexual experiences just because something bad happened one time. And going back to the lack of sex education and fetishes, there's a whole galaxy of fetishes out there, and every single person is different. I mean, you may not think you have any fetishes until it actually comes around to experiencing it. You don't know what you definitely like until you try it, do you? Also, there's such a heavy stigma surrounding the kink community, and that's purely due to ignorance and the lack of knowledge about kinks and why people may enjoy certain kinks. And the foot fetish is the prime example of this. It's something a lot of people scream about, but it's actually one of the most common fetishes out there. Due to the taboo surrounding foot fetishes, as it's not the conventional norm, as you may say, like most kinks, there's often a sense of shame surrounding it, which causes people to not share their fantasies. Even if your partner doesn't want to engage in your fantasy, it is healthy to let them know, because who knows, one day they might change their mind. I think sex should be pleasurable and fun for both consenting parties, and if you have any worries, that can really change the dynamics of your sex life. Shit Happens aims to answer the questions you're too afraid to ask. There's so many more examples of sex education I could have mentioned, but I would be here all day. I hope this welcome post has given you a bit more of an insight as to what Shit Happens is and what it aims to do. Let's break the taboo surrounding all things sex and educate ourselves on topics we wouldn't otherwise know about. If you would like to read any of my past articles, head over to the blog, which will be linked below in the description. Likewise, if you'd like any topic to be spoken about or to speak about your own experiences, don't hesitate to email shithappens@gmail.com. Also, if you have any questions at all, do not hesitate to ask. Thanks for listening to my first podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe and to share the word. On my next podcast, I'll be covering nudes, so stay tuned.